Hey guys, it's Alexandra from EyeLoveKnots.com and YarnCraftsandCoffee.com. Today I'm going to show you how to make a washcloth worked in the classic granny stitch pattern. And the granny stitch pattern is 3 double crochets worked into the same space. And the space is created just by skipping the cluster from the previous row, and then you'll move on to working 3 double crochets in the next space. I absolutely love this stitch pattern. It has been one of my favorites since I learned to crochet. Now, you may be looking at all these holes thinking, how is this going to make a nice washcloth? The answer is it still does work, but to make it more functional, I would add either a second washcloth and then you attach them together so that the back is a solid fabric and the front is the granny stitch pattern, or I would hold a strand of the cotton yarn together with a scrubby yarn so that you get something that is a little bit better. I'm going to be using mine decoratively, so they're perfect as is. I'm going to show you with just a simple single crochet border, and then I'm going to show you how you can add a hanging loop. This way you can hang it up to dry, you can hang it up decoratively, you can hang it up to store it. I have instructions for several sizes. This way you can pick the size that is your favorite to work with depending on what you're going to use it for. If you're not sure where to start, the 8-inch size is the most common size. If you'd like to see a written pattern, this is published on my EyeLoveKnots blog. I'll pop the link for that down in the description box below. If you would like to get a free copy of the PDF, all you have to do is subscribe to one of my blogs. You'll get access to the free file library and you can download it from there. I'll include that link below as well. I do have 2 different versions of this washcloth. The green one and darker blue in the background are made with worsted weight yarn. That's a number 4 weight yarn. This is Queensland Coastal Cotton. And the lighter blue here in the front is a sport weight number 2 yarn. This is Queensland Coastal Cotton Fine. There are a lot of other really great 100% cotton yarns that you could use as an alternative. You could also mix your fibers. You could do something with linen in it, with hemp or bamboo. That's completely up to you. When I'm looking for a yarn to use for my washcloths, I'm looking for a yarn that is color fast. That means that the colors are set and I don't have to worry about it fading or bleeding when I use them and when I wash them. And coastal cotton checks that box. It's also softer than you might expect from a cotton yarn. Today's video, we're going to be working on the worsted weight version. Some other cottons that I enjoy working with that are also color fast are We Crochet Dishy and Circulo Natural Max Color. 4-6 gives you a yarn that is thick like Lily Sugar and Cream, and 4-4 gives you a thinner yarn that is more like a lighter worsted weight yarn. Together with this worsted weight yarn, we're going to be using an H8 5mm crochet hook. I got this crochet hook from Sienna's Boutique on Etsy. I'll link that down below. Since gauge is not essential for this project, if you're more comfortable working with an I9 5.5 hook or a G6 4mm crochet hook with your choice of yarn, then you can absolutely do that. And then if your washcloth turns out a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller, it's not a big deal. This is also a fun project for scraps of yarn. You can alternate your colors every other row and then carry your yarn up the side, or simply fasten off and reattach another strand of yarn and change colors if you have even smaller scraps. So this is another fun option, and what I like to do is make a set. So I might do one in this striped pattern and then I'll do a solid blue and a solid yellow. Then I have a nice coordinating set for my kitchen. They also make really nice gifts. Gauge is not essential for this project, so you don't have to worry about checking your gauge. I will provide the gauge measurement if you're interested. if you want your washcloth to come out to the same sizes that I've provided. But if you don't mind that your washcloth is a little bit smaller or a little bit larger, then don't worry about checking gauge. As I said before, you can experiment with your hook size. You can go up or down hook sizes from what I've listed so that you're more comfortable working with the yarn that you've chosen. A lot of flexibility here. I'm also showing how to do square washcloths, but one of the most popular sizes that I used to offer was an 8x10. So if you wanted to turn your square into a rectangle, all you have to do is continue to add rows before you get started on your border. So it's really easy to adjust. Another way that you can make your washcloth a little bit larger is you can continue to add rounds to your border after the first one here that I'm going to show you. You can continue to add more rounds of single crochet. You can change up the stitch pattern. A lot of people like to end with a shell stitch border when they're doing granny stitch. So a lot of fun options that you can do there that will add both a decorative touch as well as some extra height and width without having to adjust the stitch counts. Let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with a slip knot, so I pulled the yarn over my fingers here. I'll wrap it around my index finger 2 times, holding tension with my thumb and my middle finger. Pull the loop on the left up over the other one, but not off my finger. Then I'll pull the one on the left now up over the other one and off my finger. Grab my crochet hook, insert it into the loop on my finger and pull it off. Hold the working yarn in my right hand. Short tail in my left, I'll pull that so this knot will go to normal tension. We're going to start first with a chain that is a multiple of 3 plus 1. To chain, we yarn over and pull through the loop on our hook. Yarn over, pull through the loop on our hook. Yarn over, pull through the loop on our hook. Each time we do that, we get one of these V shapes here. We don't count the loop that's on our hook. We have 1, 2, 3 chains so far. I'll put up a chart now that shows how many chains you're going to want to have depending on the size that you're working. Now that we have all our chains complete, we're going to double crochet into the 4th chain from the hook. We don't count the loop that's on our hook. We skip the first chain, the 2nd chain underneath that, and the 3rd chain underneath that. And in the next chain, which is the 4th chain, we're going to work a double crochet. Yarn over, insert your hook into the center of the chain, yarn over and pull through. There are 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. We're going to work one more double crochet into that same exact stitch. Yarn over, insert your hook back into the same chain, yarn over and pull through. 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. I'm going to pull up a loop here really quick. This is our first granny stitch cluster. Each cluster is made of 3 stitches. So in this case, we worked 2 stitches together, and then the skipped chains here from the beginning are going to count as our 3rd stitch. Now we're going to skip each of the next 2 chains, and in that 3rd chain, we're going to work 3 double crochets. Yarn over, insert your hook right into the center of that chain, yarn over and pull through. 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Continue working 2 more double crochets into that same exact chain, so there are 3 stitches in there. And now we have our 2nd cluster done, and it's pulling up on the loop from this chain because I'm just working into 1 loop here. But as we continue to work down the row, it's going to even out, and it will completely even out once we get to the end and we put our border on it. So for now, don't worry about it, but you're going to see that we have 2 clusters and a small space in between them. That's how we're going to continue working along the chain here. We're going to skip each of the next 2 chains, and in the 3rd chain, we're going to work 3 double crochets in there. skip each of the next 2 chains. In that third chain, work 3 double crochets. And continue working all the way down to the end of the row until you get to the last 3 stitches. It's going to work out evenly so that you have 3 stitches left at the end after you work your last cluster. We're going to skip each of the next 2 chains, and in that last chain we're just going to work 1 double crochet. And now row 1 is complete, and it has a really weird shape, but don't worry, that's going to work itself out here shortly. Each of the remaining rows is going to be worked exactly as this next row. So we're going to start with a chain 2, which is going to count as our first double crochet. We're going to turn our work, and now we're going to work 2 double crochets into this space right underneath where we are right now. You're going to yarn over, insert your hook into the space itself underneath the stitches, picking up the stitches on top of your hook, yarn over and pull through, and then complete your double crochet. And now we need 1 more double crochet into that same exact space there, inserting right into the center of the space under the stitches, picking up the stitches on your hook, and then completing your double crochet. And now our first cluster is complete with 2 double crochets and that beginning chain counting as a stitch. 3 stitches in total. We're going to skip the double crochets from the next cluster, and in the space after that we're going to work our next cluster. Yarn over, insert your hook right into the center of the space. With the stitches on your hook, complete a double crochet. Continue working so you have 3 double crochets in total, inserting your hook into the space as you work. And there's our second cluster. We're going to continue working into the spaces like this, skipping the double crochets from the cluster, working 3 double crochets into that space in between the clusters, skip the double crochets of the next cluster, 3 double crochets into the space in between the next 2 clusters. Work all the way down until you get to the very last space here and you have the last cluster left to work into. There's my very last cluster worked into the last space. And now I have 1 cluster left from row 1. We're going to skip the first 2 double crochets, and in the top chain of the beginning chain we're going to work 1 double crochet. So it's the very next stitch next to that second double crochet, the very next stitch that you can work into, that's where we're going to work our double crochet. You'll see the other chains on the bottom there. Yarn over, insert your hook into the center of the chain, yarn over and pull through, complete your double crochet. And now row 2 is complete. Still a weird shaping here, but it's going to take a couple rows for that to come back together. Now, as I mentioned, all the remaining rows are worked exactly the same as row 2. So to get started, you chain 2, you turn, work 2 double crochets into this first space underneath you, which together with the beginning chain 2 will count as 3 stitches. Skip the next cluster, work 3 double crochets into the next space in between clusters, skip the next cluster, work 3 double crochets in between the next 2 clusters. All the way down the row, ending with your last cluster in this last space here, skipping the next 2 double crochets, and then working your final double crochet, 1 double crochet into the top chain here of that beginning chain 2. Same idea as before, you just don't have as many stitches underneath. Skip those 2 double crochets, the very next stitch that's in line there with those double crochets, insert your hook right into the center of the chain and complete your stitch with just 1 double crochet at the end. You're always going to start your row with a cluster of 3 and end your row with just 1 double crochet in the last stitch. I want to show you how to count your rows of granny stitch. I did forget to film this earlier, so you do see my single crochet border there on the bottom. So just ignore that part. You're just going to have your chain here. The clusters are really easy to see, and when you count, you can count in a zigzag motion. So starting from the bottom, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. You can also count the spaces that you have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. After you work about 6 rows, you're going to notice that the shaping is going to have fixed itself and that the rows are going to be even. You can take your soft tape measure, you can measure from the edge of the left side all the way across the center to the edge of the right side. We are going to be adding a simple round of single crochet for the border, so you'll want to take that into consideration, but you'll have an idea now of the finished width of your washcloth. And if you'd like it to be smaller, you can take some chains out and work less stitches. If you want it to be larger, you can add some chains and then work more stitches. If you do adjust that chain, you'll just want to make sure that it is a multiple of 3 plus 1. That way it works out evenly. I'm going to go ahead and put up a chart that shows how many rows you're going to want to have depending on the size that you're working. It does not matter if you end on a right side or a wrong side, so if you'd like to adjust it, you can adjust my numbers simply by working less rows or more rows. Don't forget that you'll be adding that border, so it will add a little bit extra to the height. Now that we have all the rows worked for our washcloth, we're going to add a border. I'm going to be showing you a simple round of single crochet worked evenly all the way around. You can always change this up to another stitch pattern or add additional rounds if you'd like. I'm going to show you 2 different ways that you can add a border, one with a hanging loop and one without. You're going to see me bouncing back between this washcloth and a green washcloth as I work. Because we've turned at the end of each row, any side can be the right side or the wrong side. I always have the side that my border is on as the right side, so the side that we're looking at is going to be my back side, but it looks the same as the other side. So for a simple round with no hanging loop, we're going to start with a chain 1 and turn. We're going to start with 1 single crochet into that very first stitch that our chain is coming out of. So we'll insert our hook into that stitch, picking up both loops, yarn over and pull through. 2 loops on our hook right now, yarn over and pull through both loops. Now we're going to continue to single crochet across. As we work, we're going to be working into the double crochets themselves, not into the spaces in between. So we're going to insert our hook into the very next double crochet, which is the first one from that cluster. Yarn over, pull through, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through both loops. Insert your hook into the next double crochet, which is the middle double crochet, yarn over and pull through, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through both loops. And then we just continue single crocheting into each stitch all the way across there, skipping the spaces that are in between the clusters and just working into the double crochets themselves. Continue working all the way across until you get to the end, and in that very last stitch I'll be back with you so that we can increase for our first corner. For a hanging loop, we're going to start with a chain 6. And now we're going to slip stitch join to that very last stitch underneath both loops so that we get a ring to work into. So we're going to swing around to the left and insert our hook into that very last stitch there as you normally work into the stitch. The 2 loops from the V shape are on the right side. Now you have the side edge of the stitch on your hook, and we're going to now yarn over, pull through that stitch, and then also pull through the loop that's on our hook. That completes our slip stitch, and now we have a little ring here that we're going to be working into. This is the base of the hanging loop. Now we're going to chain one, and we're going to flip this over. We're going to work 10 single crochets into the center of this ring here that we created. So we'll insert our hook right in the center of that ring, picking up the chains on our hook, yarn over, pull through. There are 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through both loops. That completes our first single crochet. Insert your hook into the center ring, yarn over and pull through, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through both loops. Insert your hook into the center ring, you have the chains on your hook, yarn over and pull through, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through both loops. So now we've created 1, 2, 3 single crochets. You see they have the same V shape here at the top. We're going to continue working so that we have 10 single crochets in this ring, and if at any point you run out of space, hold on to the chains here in your left hand, and with your right hand pull on the stitches and they will slide down that ring to make more space for you. I have all my single crochets worked into that ring, and now we're going to move on here to this top row. We're going to skip that very first stitch here that you slip stitched to, and we're going to single crochet into the next stitch, picking up both loops of that stitch when we insert our hook in there, and continue to single crochet into each stitch all the way across. And we're not working into the spaces of the stitch pattern, we're only working into the top of the double crochets that create the clusters. So you'll just work evenly all along the top there until you get to the very last stitch, and then I'll be back so that we can work our first corner together. I've worked all the way across here, and now I have just 1 stitch left, which is the top chain of the beginning chain 2. This is going to be where we're going to work our first corner, so we need to increase in the corners so that it will lay flat. And that simply means working multiple stitches into 1 stitch. So into the top chain, as we have been working, I'm going to work a single crochet. And now you can decide how you'd like to do this. There's a couple different ways. So if you like a more rounded corner, you could do a single crochet, chain 1 single crochet, or 3 single crochets. If you like a more square corner, you could do single crochet, half double crochet, single crochet, or single crochet, chain 2 single crochet. You decide what you'd like to do. I'm just going to do a chain 1 and then single crochet back into that same exact stitch. And then that will complete this corner with 3 stitches in there. And now we're ready to work down the side. And when you're working down the side of double crochet, the rule is 2 stitches per row. So we're going to work into the side edge of these stitches as opposed to in between the stitches, as that will give you a lacy pattern here on the end. Working into the side edge is going to prevent that, or at least prevent a little bit of it. Sometimes it still takes on a little bit of a lacy pattern. Double crochets are kind of laid out really easy to see. So we already worked into the top of this double crochet, and then we'll work into the bottom half of this double crochet. Looking at the next row right here, we'll work into the top half and then into the bottom half. Next row, top half, bottom half, top half, bottom half. It's really easy to see how they're laid out here. So as I mentioned, we worked into that first stitch with our increase, and we have just the bottom half to work into. Insert your hook into the center of this stitch. You're going to see the back bump here over top on the left, the other leg behind it on the right, and then there's a bottom leg. Insert right into the center where you can kind of see that hole. You have those 2 loops on your hook, and then yarn over and pull through and complete your single crochet. Now we're going to go into the next row here, and we're going to start with the top part of the stitch. So I'm going to insert my hook right into the center of that top part. It's like inserting right into the center of the V. When I push through, I'm going to pick up that top loop as well as the back loop on my hook. So there'll be 2 loops on my hook. And then I'll complete my single crochet. Then we'll work into the second half of the double crochet here, right into the center of the stitch, breaking it in half and picking up the 2 loops on the side and complete our single crochet. The next one here has like a hole. Insert right in the center of it, picking up the 2 loops. Always try to get 2 loops on your hook. That's where it's going to be the most secure with your stitch. Otherwise, if you're just picking up 1 loop, then the fabric might pull. But sometimes you can't get 2 stitches. So in the event that you can only pick up 1 stitch on your hook, just try to get 2 stitches with all the rest, and it'll be fine. Now we single crochet into the second half, right into the center of the stitch there. And now we've completed that other row as well. So as you continue working, just remember you need to work 2 stitches into the side edge of each row. And it'll pretty much be like the very next stitch you're going to work into, that will be the first half. The very next stitch you're going to work into is going to be the second half. They're going to be evenly spaced. And then just know that you'll be looking at the right side of the stitches sometimes, if you have the right side of the fabric facing. And then you'll be looking at the wrong side of the row if it's the wrong side facing. So the stitches look a little bit different there on the end depending on what side of the fabric you're looking at. But you're going to work into them the same way. Don't insert your hook in between the stitches. Break the stitch in half on the edge. Work all the way down. At the end, we're going to have 2 stitches into this very first row at the bottom. And then we're going to increase in the corner chain. And now that I've completed the last 2 stitches here for this first row at the bottom, I have 1 stitch left, and that's where I'm going to work my increase, my corner. And you're going to work it the same way as you chose to do at the last corner. You're going to want to make sure you work all of them the same. So for mine, I'm going to single crochet, chain 1, single crochet into that same exact stitch. And in this case, I have the tail end here, so this hole might open up as I'm working because that slip knot is not secured yet. If it does, you can hold onto the fabric in between your fingers, holding right at the slip knot, and just give that strand a tug, and it'll close that hole up. And we'll secure that in a few moments when we weave in our ends. I finished on an even row, so this tail end is over here. If you finished on an odd row, then the tail end is going to be on the other side. Now we're just going to rotate here a little bit and work into the opposite side of the foundation chain. It's going to look the same way as it did when you worked initially. We're just looking at the other side of it this time. So you can see you're going to have 2 chains here to the left, and then a stitch where that cluster is worked into. We're going to be single crocheting into each one of those chains and the stitch all the way across. So insert right into the center of the chain, yarn over and pull through, yarn over and complete your single crochet. Right into the center of the next chain, complete your single crochet. Right into the center of the next stitch that's attached to that cluster, and complete a single crochet. And now just continue single crocheting into each chain, inserting right into the center of the chain and each stitch. Work all the way across. Once you get to the other side, in that very last stitch, we'll work another corner increase together. Here at the other side, I'm going to work the single crochet that's worked into the last cluster. And the very next chain here is going to be our corner stitch. If you look at this stitch in total, you'll see that the top chain is even with the top of the double crochets. There's a chain in the middle that is even, and then there's one chain at the bottom. Those two chains above it are going to be the two stitches we're going to work into for the side going up, and this one at the bottom is our corner. So when you reach this point, just make sure that you can see those three chains so that you know which one to work into, and you'll just insert right in the center of it and complete your corner the same way as you did your others. For me, that's a single crochet, chain one, single crochet. And now we're going to continue working evenly up the side there the same way as we did before, inserting right into the next stitch at the bottom and then the next stitch at the top, working 2 stitches per row. 1 stitch at the bottom, working into the side edge, and then 1 stitch at the top. And I had a little trouble the first time I was working up because I was just working into this stitch here at the top, but it was creating a lacy pattern there. So I'm going to recommend that you work into this stitch here where you can see the back bump facing right into the center of that stitch, picking up those 2 loops, and then complete your single crochet. So it's going to be just outside the top of the stitch. And then, as I mentioned before, the stitches look different if you're looking at the right side of the fabric versus the wrong side. So the next one's going to be really easy to see right here. It's going to be a hole. Then I'll work into the bottom of this next stitch. And now I've come to that same stitch up here again, and I'm going to come here to the side, look for that back bump, and insert in the center of the stitch, as opposed to in the stitch here where it's going to pull up on my fabric. Right here on the side, and complete that stitch. Alright, and go ahead and continue working all the way up here until you're back to the beginning. Here I am. I've reached the very beginning here with the first double crochet. I'm going to work into the bottom half of it as normal. And then for the top half, we have that first stitch that we started. We're going to go ahead and complete this increase by inserting into the same exact stitch, working another single crochet, and then in place of the second stitch in the middle, we're going to slip stitch join. That's going to take the place of that third stitch. Insert your hook underneath both loops of the first stitch, yarn over, pull through that stitch and through the loop that's on your hook. Then you're going to fasten off with a tail end long enough you can comfortably weave in. Pull up on that loop to break it. And I like to bring it to the wrong side, so I'll insert from the back to the front in that same stitch I slip stitched to, yarn over and pull it through to the back. And now it's ready to be woven in. I've made it all the way back around. I have 1 stitch left here at the bottom of this first row, and I'm going to skip that stitch. We're going to slip stitch join to the first single crochet that we made in the hanging loop. Underneath it, you see some twisted stitches here, so it can be a little confusing as to which one is the first stitch. But the ones that are twisted on their side down here are not it. It is the one that is the complete V-stitch here along the side. Insert your hook underneath both loops of that V shape. Yarn over, pull through that stitch and through the loop that's on your hook. That completes your slip stitch, and we've just completed the border. So now I'm going to go ahead and fasten off with a tail end long enough I can comfortably weave in. I'm going to come back here, pull up on this loop to break it, then I like to bring it to the back side, so I'll insert from the back to the front into the same stitch I just slip stitched to, yarn over with that tail end and pull it through to the back. Now I'm ready to weave in my ends. If you're working a washcloth that does not have a hanging loop, Then your ends are going to be woven in the same as this bottom one here. I'm going to work vertically here. That's what's going to hide this weave the best. I'm going to do it along the bulkiness of the border. Instead of picking up the whole entire stitch on my needle, when I enter and exit, I will instead break the stitch in half, and that's going to help to capture my yarn better. So I'm going to insert into a nearby stitch here, breaking it in half, and run vertically under several stitches, breaking the last stitch in half when I exit. Then I'll hold onto the fabric in between my fingers to prevent some of the bunching, pull my needle through, give it a tug, and then I'll come back here and manipulate the fabric if I need to, if my fabric has bunched up. I want it to lay naturally and not look distorted. So I'll rotate this, insert into a nearby stitch here, breaking it in half, run back through several of those same stitches I just finished working, break the last stitch in half when I exit, hold onto the fabric in between my fingers, pull it through, and give it a tug. Then I'll go back and manipulate the fabric if I need to, if it's bunched up. Now I like to do 3 passes, that's my magic number. If you feel comfortable after 2, you can fasten off. If you feel like you need to work a 4th one, you can do that too. Into a nearby stitch here, breaking it in half, up vertically through several of those same stitches, breaking that last stitch in half when I exit, hold on to the fabric, pull the needle through, give it a tug, manipulate the fabric. And now I'm happy with that, so I'm going to go ahead and fasten off. So if you did not add the hanging loop, your last tail end will be woven in the same way as this one. If you have the hanging loop here, we're going to do it in a similar manner. I'm going to run vertically here down the side of the washcloth, 3 passes, breaking my stitches in half. And now my washcloth is ready to go.